June 1944, Normandy, France-American forces, under General Omar Bradley, pushed inland from D-Day beaches, supported by truck columns at beachheads, hauling supplies from mulberry harbors and landing sites. The United States had cracked a puzzle. Germany could not, moving men, fuel, and steel across an ocean, then a contested continent. In the churn of mud and shellfire, trucks rumbled from beachheads to forward lines, their engines growling under loads of ammunition and rations. Each vehicle, a 2.5-ton workhorse, navigated cratered roads to sustain the grind. From June to early July, supplies unloaded mainly at beaches. Cherbourg captured late June and restored gradually during July before becoming primary hub. The Red Ball Express, launched 25 August 1944, became the artery of this advance, its convoys on dedicated priority route, initial phase, about 125 miles each way, under threat of German ambush. Across the channel, engineers prepared fuel pipelines to connect Isle of Wight to Cherbourg, but Operation Bambi delivered low flow initially. Germany's stretched divisions, tethered to rail lines short of coal and bridges interrupted, watched this flood of material with growing dread, their horse-drawn carts and disrupted tracks slowing mobility. The number that matters is 12,500 tons moved daily by truck at peak capacity. Drivers worked 20-hour shifts, their wheels carving paths through dust and rain. Railway units, like railway operating battalions of military railway service, such as 712th, followed, rebuilding shattered French tracks to carry tanks and artillery. By mid-September, about 3,400 miles of rail operated under American control, each locomotive a lifeline for divisions racing toward the Rhine. By year-end, thousands more miles of single and double track functioned. The constraint was time. Every hour lost to bombed bridges or fuel shortages risked a German counterattack. In Berlin, planners scrambled to shift panzer units, but their trains crawled, starved of coal and tracks. The American system, relentless and mechanized, turned logistics into a weapon, its rhythm unbroken by distance or resistance. The American advance, a steel tide sweeping across Normandy, demanded fuel to sustain its relentless momentum. By late summer 1944, engineers had begun preparations for Operation PLUTO pipelines under the ocean, a bold endeavor to pump petroleum from England to France. The initial system, codenamed Bambi, connected the Isle of Wight to Cherbourg, delivering a modest flow of fuel, far below the 300 tons daily, often cited in early reports. This trickle, constrained by technical challenges and the need for precise underwater welding, was a mere starting point. Engineers, working against time and tides, laid the first of 17 pipelines, each a feat of precision snaking beneath the English Channel's waves. These lines aimed to bypass the perilous tanker runs, hunted by U-boat wolf packs, ensuring fuel reached Allied armies without delay. By late 1944, the Dumbo system, linking Dungeness to Boulogne, began to deliver a more substantial flow, approximately 1,300 tons daily, with capacity growing steadily. By March 1945, PLUTO's network supplied 4,100 tons daily, enough to keep tanks, trucks, and aircraft moving without pause. The United States had engineered a solution Germany could only dream of solving, its panzer divisions idling, their fuel rations measured in liters as Allied armies roared forward. On the ground, the Red Ball Express, operational since 25 August 1944, formed the backbone of supply lines. Its convoys, stretching across dedicated routes, initially about 125 miles each way, carried the lifeblood of the advance. At its peak, from late August to mid-November 1944, approximately 5,958 trucks moved 12,500 tons daily, a figure that dwarfed Germany's faltering logistics. Drivers, many African-American soldiers, dodged strafing runs and navigated cratered roads. One soldier, hauling gasoline through moonless nights for Patton's Third Army, relied on cat's eye markers to stay on course, his 2.5-ton truck swaying under the weight of jerry cans. The work was grueling, 20-hour shifts, mud that bogged tires, and the constant threat of German snipers or Luftwaffe attacks. Yet these convoys, pulsing through Normandy's shattered landscape, ensured the front never starved. The number that matters is 12,500 tons moved daily by truck, a rhythm that kept the Allied machine grinding forward. Across the theater, railway engineers toiled to restore France's battered rail network. By mid-September 1944, military railway service units, including battalions like the 712th, had rebuilt approximately 3,400 miles of track, transforming chaos into order. Each locomotive, hauling 50 cars of shells, rations, or armor, pushed the front closer to Germany's heart. Engineers faced sabotaged tracks and enemy fire, yet they rebuilt bridges and cleared wreckage with relentless precision. One unit, working near Lisieux, restored a bombed-out rail bridge in days, their acetylene torches sparking through the night as German artillery thundered nearby. The constraint was vulnerability. A single derailed train or bombed pipeline could choke the advance, forcing commanders to guard every junction and fuel depot. The United States system, however, was built to absorb such shocks, its redundancy, and scale outmatching Germany's crumbling infrastructure. Germany's logistics, by contrast, teetered on collapse. Allied bombing had gutted its synthetic oil plants, reducing fuel output to a fraction of 1,943 levels. Rail networks, once the backbone of Blitzkrieg, now limped under coal shortages and shattered tracks. In Berlin, quartermasters rationed fuel by the barrel, forcing panzer units to prioritize defensive positions over mobile operations. A German officer, inspecting a stalled division in September 1944, noted tanks abandoned for lack of gasoline, their crews scavenging local farms for food. The Wehrmacht's mobility, once its hallmark, had become a memory, while American trucks and trains surged without pause. The Allies' ability to deliver fuel and materiel across vast distances turned the war's tempo against Germany, each convoy and pipeline tightening the noose. The Red Ball Express, though a marvel, was not without flaws. Its trucks consumed fuel at a prodigious rate, sometimes burning 1 gallon for every mile to deliver 4 gallons to the front. Maintenance crews worked around the clock, patching tires and engines worn by endless runs. Yet the system's scale, nearly 6,000 vehicles at peak, ensured that even losses to breakdowns or ambushes did not halt the flow. Drivers, often unsung, adapted to chaos, using ingenuity to keep moving. One convoy, stranded by a washed-out road, built a makeshift bridge from felled trees, their cargo reaching the front by dawn. This resilience, born of necessity, kept the Third Army and others supplied as they slashed through France. PLUTO's evolution, meanwhile, marked a turning point in logistics. The early Bambi system, plagued by leaks and low pressure, had been a proof of concept rather than a game-changer. By late 1944, however, the Dumbo pipelines, supported by pumping stations and reinforced cables, delivered fuel at scale. Engineers, some drawn from civilian oil industries, worked in freezing channel waters to maintain these lines, their efforts invisible but vital. By early 1945, PLUTO's 4,100 tons daily fueled not just tanks but the airfields powering relentless Allied bombing campaigns. This steady flow, immune to U-boat threats, gave commanders flexibility Germany lacked, allowing rapid shifts in strategy without fear of supply shortages. The interplay of trucks, rails, and pipelines created a system greater than its parts. While Red Ball convoys handled urgent deliveries, railways moved bulk supplies, and PLUTO ensured fuel independence. This triad overwhelmed Germany's ability to respond, its divisions pinned by shortages while Allied forces maneuvered freely. The constraint was coordination. Every truck route, rail schedule, and pipeline valve had to align perfectly. American planners, leveraging industrial expertise, mastered this complexity, their logistics, a weapon as decisive as any division. By December 1944, the American logistical machine had reshaped the Western Front into a theater of relentless advance. The Red Ball Express, scaled back after its peak from August to November, had stockpiled enough supplies to fuel a winter push. Its convoys, at their height moving 12,500 tons daily across routes stretching 125 miles each way, had ensured no division went without ammunition or rations. Railways, restored by military railway service units, now spanned 3,400 miles of track by mid-September, with thousands more operational by year's end. These lines carried the weight of heavy artillery, Sherman tanks, and bulk supplies, each locomotive hauling 50 cars through snow and shellfire. Operation Pluto, evolved from its modest Bambi beginnings, had become a lifeline. By December, the Dumbo pipelines from Dungeness to Boulogne pumped approximately 1,300 tons of fuel daily, a figure that climbed to 4,100 tons daily by March 1945. This flow kept tanks rolling, trucks moving, and airfields operational, ensuring no division stalled for want of gasoline. Germany, battered by Allied bombing, could not match this tempo. Its synthetic oil plants, crippled by raids on Ploesti and Luna, produced a trickle of fuel, while rail networks crumbled under air attacks. The Wehrmacht's mobility, once its strength, had become a memory, its divisions tethered to shrinking depots and horse-drawn carts. The American system was not just a network, but a weapon, its scale and redundancy overwhelming Germany's faltering logistics. The Red Ball Express, though reduced, still delivered critical supplies to forward units, its drivers navigating icy roads under threat of ambush. One soldier, part of a convoy to the First Army, recalled chaining tires to grip frozen mud, his truck loaded with medical supplies for a besieged outpost. Railway engineers, like those in battalions such as the 712th, worked through blizzards to clear sabotaged tracks, their hands numb as they reset rails under German artillery fire. A single restored bridge near Liège, rebuilt in 72 hours, allowed trains to rush reinforcements to the front, each car loaded with shells or replacement parts. PLUTO's pipelines, now a marvel of engineering, delivered fuel immune to U-boat threats, their pumping stations humming through the winter. This triad of trucks, rails, and pipelines created a system that could absorb shocks, bombed bridges, derailed trains, or strafed convoys, while Germany's logistics collapsed under less pressure. The number that matters is 4,100 tons of fuel delivered daily by March 1945, a statistic that powered the Allies' relentless grind. In mid-December, Germany launched a desperate gamble, the Battle of the Bulge. Panzer divisions, massed in the Ardennes, surged through snow-covered forests, aiming to split Allied lines and recapture Antwerp's vital port. For a moment, the offensive seemed to revive the Wehrmacht's blitzkrieg spirit, with tanks and half-tracks punching through American defenses. But the German advance carried a fatal flaw: fuel. Panzer units, burning through their reserves in days, relied on capturing Allied depots to keep moving. By December 23rd, many tanks stood idle, their crews scavenging for gasoline or abandoning vehicles in the snow. American logistics, by contrast, flexed under pressure. When German spearheads cut roads to Bastogne, Red Ball trucks rerouted supplies through secondary routes, their drivers braving fog and enemy patrols. Railways, operating round the clock, rushed reinforcements from depots in France and Belgium, with trains unloading troops and armor within hours of arriving. PLUTO pipelines, pumping 1,300 tons daily in December, kept airfields active, enabling Allied fighters to pound German columns from the skies. The constraint was endurance. America's system could sustain operations through chaos. Germany's could not. The Battle of the Bulge exposed Germany's logistical collapse. Allied bombing had reduced its fuel production to less than 10% of 1,943 levels, with synthetic plants like Merseburg barely operational. Rail networks, vital for moving reserves, were paralyzed by air raids and coal shortages. A German quartermaster, reporting from the Eifel region, described trains delayed for days, their cargo looted by desperate troops. Panzer commanders, expecting to refuel from captured stocks, found American depots either destroyed or heavily guarded. By contrast, American supply lines adapted swiftly. Engineers rebuilt bombed rail junctions, often under fire, ensuring trains reached the front. One unit, working near Malmedy, restored a derailed locomotive in 48 hours, its cargo of anti-tank guns critical to halting a German advance. Truck convoys, redirected to encircled units like the 101st Airborne at Bastogne, delivered food and ammunition through snowstorms, their headlights dimmed to avoid detection. PLUTO's steady fuel flow, immune to weather or enemy action, powered the air and ground counteroffensive that broke the German thrust. The turning point came in late December, as German momentum faltered. Without fuel, panzer divisions could not exploit early gains, their tanks stranded in the Ardennes' frozen hills. American forces, resupplied and reinforced, launched counterattacks that reclaimed lost ground. By January 1945, the bulge was collapsing, with German units retreating under relentless Allied pressure. The American logistical system, built on trucks, rails, and pipelines, had not just survived but thrived under strain. Drivers, engineers, and pipeline crews worked through exhaustion, their efforts invisible in battle reports but decisive in outcome. Germany's commanders, staring at maps littered with immobilized units, realized the war was lost not in foxholes but in empty supply depots. The Wehrmacht, once a master of mobile warfare, had been outmaneuvered by a system that delivered 4,100 tons of fuel daily when it mattered most. This logistical triumph was not without cost. Red Ball drivers faced frostbite and breakdowns, their trucks pushed beyond design limits. Railway engineers, exposed to enemy fire, suffered casualties while restoring tracks. Pipeline crews, maintaining PLUTO's underwater lines, battled leaks and equipment failures in freezing conditions. Yet their work ensured the Allies could sustain a war of movement Germany could not. The Ardennes offensive, meant to break the Allied advance, instead broke the Wehrmacht's back, its failure a testament to the power of logistics. As January 1945 dawned, American forces prepared to cross the Rhine, their supply lines unbroken, their momentum unstoppable. The number that matters is 4,100 tons of fuel delivered daily, a lifeline that turned the tide. By March 1945, American forces stood at the Rhine, their advance powered by a logistical system Germany could not rival. By early 1945, thousands of miles of rail in liberated France and Belgium were back in service, pushing bulk tonnage to the Rhine. Operation PLUTO, now centered on the Dumbo system from Dungeness to Boulogne, delivered roughly 4,100 tons of fuel per day, sustaining fuel stocks at channel and forward depots. Road lift could still surge to Red Bull scale levels for short bursts, but rail bore most of the load by March, with locomotives hauling 50 cars of artillery and rations to frontline depots. The United States had built a machine that sustained an army across a continent, while Germany's forces, starved of fuel and rail, collapsed into pockets of resistance. The Rhine crossing, a triumph of engineering, saw pontoon bridges carry vehicles and troops under fire, while repaired and newly built rail bridges pushed bulk supplies across the river. The Ruhr, Germany's industrial core, was encircled, its factories silenced by the Allied advance. American logistics minimized operational pauses, each bridge, pipeline, and convoy aligning to maintain momentum. Germany's surrender, by May 1945, was a matter of time, its armies immobilized, while Allied forces maneuvered with precision. The constraint was coordination. Every rail schedule, fuel pump, and crossing had to synchronize perfectly. The number that matters is 4,100 tons of fuel delivered daily, a lifeline decisive in constraining Wehrmacht mobility. The American logistical machine, a marvel of steel and fuel, pulsed with human effort. Drivers of the Red Ball Express, many African-American soldiers, endured 20-hour shifts on roads scarred by war. From late August to mid-November, 1,944, their convoys, peaking at 5,958 trucks, hauled 12,500 tons daily across routes, stretching 125 miles each way. One driver, delivering ammunition to the First Army near Street, low, navigated fog so dense he roped his truck to the one ahead, guided only by faint tail lights. Mud clung to tires, turning roads into quagmires, while German snipers lurked at choke points, their rifles trained on bottlenecks. Yet these men, often unsung, kept the front supplied, their 2.5-ton trucks grinding through dust and rain to deliver shells, rations, and medical kits. The number that matters is 12,500 tons moved daily at peak, a figure that sustained the Allied advance when momentum was everything. Railway engineers, like those in military railway service units, such as the 712th Railway Operating Battalion, matched the driver's resolve. By mid-September 1944, they had restored 3,400 miles of French and Belgian tracks, with thousands more operational by early 1945. Their work was relentless, rebuilding bridges under shell fire, laying ties across shattered spans, and clearing wreckage from bombed-out rail yards. One crew, working near Caen, reset a derailed locomotive under German artillery barrages, their hands blistered from hauling steel in the summer heat. Each train, hauling 50 cars of tanks or artillery, was a lifeline, pushing the front closer to the Rhine. The constraint was exhaustion. Men driven beyond physical limits, knowing a broken rail or delayed convoy could stall the war. The United States system, built on disciplined crews, turned grueling labor into unstoppable momentum. Across the English Channel, Operation Pluto demanded equal sacrifice. By December 1944, the Dumbo pipelines from Dungeness to Boulogne delivered 1,300 tons of fuel daily, a figure that grew to 4,100 tons daily by March 1945. Laying each pipeline required divers and welders working in freezing waters, their tools battling currents and silt. One team, repairing a leak off Cherbourg, spent hours submerged, their oxygen lines tangled in underwater cables. These pipelines, immune to U-boat attacks, freed Allied armies from reliance on vulnerable tankers, ensuring fuel reached forward depots. The work was invisible but vital, each ton of gasoline powering tanks, trucks, and aircraft that drove the German lines back. The United States had engineered a system Germany could not match, its panzer divisions stalled by fuel shortages while Allied forces surged. The human cost was stark. Red Bull drivers faced not just enemy fire but the strain of endless runs. Trucks, pushed beyond design limits, broke down under heavy loads, their engines choking on dust or seizing in cold. Maintenance crews, working in makeshift depots, patched tires and axles through the night, their efforts keeping convoys on schedule. One driver, stranded by a blown engine near Chartres, stayed with his cargo under Luftwaffe, strafing, guarding jerry cans until relief arrived. Railway engineers, exposed on open tracks, took casualties from snipers and mines. A unit near Aachen, rebuilding a bombed bridge, lost men to a German mortar barrage, but completed the span by dawn, their train crossing with shells for the Ninth Army. Pluto crews, battling hypothermia and equipment failures, worked in shifts to maintain pressure in the lines, their labor ensuring the 4,100 tons daily that fueled the final push. Germany's logistics, by contrast, buckled under less strain. Dependent on conscripted labor and scavenged fuel, its supply lines faltered. Allied bombing had crippled synthetic oil plants, leaving panzer units rationing gasoline by the liter. Rail networks, starved of coal and riddled with sabotage, moved at a crawl. A German quartermaster in the Ruhr, reporting in early 1945, described trains delayed for weeks, their cargo looted by desperate civilians, the Wehrmacht's reliance on horse-drawn carts, a stark contrast to American mechanization, slowed its response to Allied advances. While German crews labored under coercion, American drivers and engineers, though segregated and often under-recognized, operated with disciplined precision, their work a testament to resilience. The Red Bull Express, though scaled back by December 1944, left a legacy of adaptability. Drivers, navigating icy roads, rerouted supplies during the Battle of the Bulge, their convoys reaching encircled units like the 101st Airborne at Bastogne. Railway engineers, facing winter snows, kept trains running, their restored tracks carrying reinforcements to counter German offensives. Pluto crews, maintaining pipelines through storms, ensured fuel stocks never dwindled, their efforts powering the air and ground campaigns that broke the Wehrmacht. The United States logistical system, driven by these men, was not just a network but a force multiplier, its human element as critical as its machines. The toll was not only physical but social. African American drivers, barred from combat roles by segregation, faced discrimination even as they kept armies moving. Their contributions, vital to victory, were sidelined in official accounts, their stories only later reclaimed. Railway and pipeline crews, drawn from diverse backgrounds, worked in anonymity, their labor buried in logistics reports. Yet without them, the Allied advance would have faltered. The constraint was endurance, men who pushed through fatigue and danger, knowing their work held the war's outcome. The number that matters is 4,100 tons of fuel delivered daily by spring, a lifeline born of human grit. The war's narrative often celebrates tanks and air raids, but logistics secured victory. By April 1945, American railways operated thousands of miles of restored tracks across liberated France and Belgium, moving artillery and troops to dismantle Germany's final defenses. Operation Pluto, with its Dumbo pipelines from Dungeness to Boulogne, delivered roughly 4,100 tons of fuel daily, powering armored thrusts deep into the Reich. Road transport, though less dominant than at Red Ball's peak, remained vital, with trucks able to surge to 12,500 tons daily for short bursts when rail alone was not enough. These convoys, threading through ruined towns, kept the front supplied. The myth of Blitzkrieg's invincibility collapsed in the Ardennes, where German tanks, starved of fuel, stalled in December 1944, while American supplies flowed without interruption. Germany's generals, once architects of mobile warfare, confronted a harsh truth. Their panzers had become static forts, useless without gasoline. Allied bombing had gutted synthetic oil plants, reducing fuel output to a fraction of 1,943 levels. Rail networks, crippled by air raids and sabotage, could not move reserves or supplies. A German officer in the Ruhr, reporting in early 1945, described divisions stranded by empty depots, their trucks and tanks abandoned for lack of fuel. The United States, by contrast, had engineered a system that sustained relentless operations. Its trucks, trains, and pipelines outpaced any counteroffensive, delivering materiel at a tempo Germany could not match. The number that matters is 4,100 tons of fuel delivered daily, a statistic that choked the Wehrmacht's mobility. The constraint was adaptation. Germany could not rebuild what Allied bombs destroyed its rail yards, and refineries lay in ruins, its labor force depleted. American engineers, however, restored tracks and fuel lines in days. Railway units, like those in the military railway service, repaired bombed junctions under fire, ensuring trains kept rolling. One crew near Cologne, working through a March snowstorm, reset a derailed locomotive in 48 hours, its cargo of anti-tank guns critical to stopping a German counterattack. PLUTO's pipelines, maintained by crews battling leaks and storms, delivered fuel immune to disruption, powering the tanks and aircraft that hammered Germany's defenses. Trucks, though secondary to rail by spring, filled gaps, their drivers navigating rubble-strewn roads to reach isolated units. This logistical triad, trucks, trains, pipelines, turned the war's final months into a grind Germany could not endure. The Ardennes offensive had been Germany's last gasp, its failure exposing the limits of a war machine without supplies. In December 1944, panzer divisions burned through their fuel in days, unable to exploit early gains. American logistics, by contrast, adapted under pressure, rerouting convoys and rushing reinforcements by rail. By April, this system had carried the Allies across the Rhine, encircling the Ruhr and silencing Germany's industrial heart. The Blitzkrieg, once a symbol of German prowess, was revealed as fragile without fuel or transport. American planners, leveraging industrial expertise, had built a machine that sustained movement where Germany's faltered. The 4,100 tons of fuel delivered daily by PLUTO was not just a number, but a death knell for the Wehrmacht's ambitions. This logistical triumph redefined warfare. The United States' ability to project power across a continent through bombed-out landscapes and contested skies rested on engineers, drivers, and pipeline crews. Their work, often overshadowed by combat heroics, was the war's backbone. Germany's generals, staring at maps littered with immobilized units, saw their doctrine of speed and maneuver undone by a system that never stopped moving. The constraint of adaptation, Germany's inability to rebuild, contrasted with America's relentless restoration, sealed the outcome. As Allied armies closed in, the Wehrmacht's collapse was not just military but material, its defeat written in empty tanks and silent rails. Germany surrendered in May 1945, its armies broken by a war of movement they could not sustain. American logistics, a machine of trucks, trains, and pipelines, had delivered the decisive blow. Railways, stretching 2,500 miles, carried the weight of victory. PLUTO pipelines, supplying 4,100 tons of fuel daily, ensured no tank or plane stood idle. Trucks, peaking at 12,500 tons daily, kept the front alive, their drivers unsung in the war's final chapters. The United States had redefined warfare, proving supply lines could outmatch firepower. The Red Ball Express and PLUTO became blueprints for modern militaries, studied by NATO planners for decades. African American drivers, though segregated, proved indispensable, their contributions only later acknowledged. Germany's defeat exposed the limits of a war machine without fuel or transport, its factories and divisions paralyzed. The constraint was recognition. Logistics, not just battles, shaped the outcome. The number that matters is 4,100 tons of fuel daily, a legacy etched in pipelines and rails.